Imagine being Ferran Torres' manager. You've watched him miss chance after chance for 4 years. 0 goals in 7 matches this tournament alone. The fans call him a flop. You send him on in the 62nd minute of a World Cup final. 44 minutes later, in the 106th minute, he scores the winner. 1 goal in the 8th match. That 1 goal was worth more than the other 7 combined. It still wasn't enough to keep him at Barcelona. Here's what happened next and what it cost him. Before we continue, subscribe and hit the bell if you enjoy premium football stories like this. Here's what this video covers. This isn't a highlight reel. You've probably watched that goal 100 times. This video covers the 4.5 years before it, the 24 hours after his lowest moment that almost nobody mentions, and the specific price that goal cost him at the club that built him. By the end, you'll have solid evidence for 2 completely different explanations of what happened to Ferran Torres. Neither one fully wins. Start at the beginning. Foyos, a small town outside Valencia. He joined the Valencia Academy at 6 years old. By 17, he'd already made his first team debut. That same year, he became the first player born in the 2000s to appear in La Liga. In 2019, still a teenager, he sat on the bench as Valencia beat Barcelona in the Copa del Rey final. 3 years later, Barcelona would be the club paying 55 million euros to sign him. Manchester City signed him first. In 2020 for a reported 23 million euros. Within his first 2 months there, he scored in 3 straight Champions League matches. No Spanish player his age had ever done that. He won a Premier League title that season. Then, in the middle of the worst financial crisis in Barcelona's modern history, the club spent 55 million euros to bring him home. Sit with that for a second. Barcelona could barely register their own signings that year, and they spent more on Ferran Torres than on almost anyone else in years. Whether that money would pay off was still completely unclear. His first goal for Barça came on January 20th, 2022. Extra time, Copa del Rey against Athletic Bilbao. Barcelona lost that game 3-2. Even his opening chapter carried an asterisk. Remember that detail. It matters later. For a while, everything looked right. He scored and set up a goal in his first Clásico at the Bernabeu, a 4-0 win. 7 goals in his first 25 appearances. Then Barcelona signed Robert Lewandowski and Rafinha in the same summer. Ousmane Dembélé recovered from injury at the same time. 4 players were now competing for 2 attacking spots. Torres didn't win one of them. The goals dried up. His minutes shrank. The sharp, confident player from that Clásico started disappearing on the pitch, hesitating on runs he used to make without a second thought. That version of Torres is the one most fans still picture. It isn't the one Hansi Flick would come to trust. Here's what makes him dangerous, and it's not what most fans assume. He isn't a target man. He doesn't win the ball with his back to goal and hold it up for teammates. He reads a tiring defense and attacks the exact half yard a center back stops watching. That skill thrives specifically off the bench. Fresh legs against tired legs late in a match. That's exactly when a defender's focus drifts. In April 2025, Hansi Flick started him instead of Lewandowski in the Copa del Rey semi-final against Atletico Madrid. The decision looked strange at kickoff. Torres scored the winner that sent Barcelona to the final. That's not a hot take. That's a manager making a specific tactical bet. And on a night when the alternative meant benching the club's top scorer, the bet paid off. None of that tactical trust explains what was happening in his head. Almost nobody puts a date on what happened next. On February 19th, 2023, Torres delivered a man-of-the-match performance against Cádiz. Confident, sharp, back to his best. The next day, in an interview, he said he'd fallen into a bottomless well. He confirmed he'd been working with a sports psychologist through the worst of it one day. That's the entire gap between the public version of Ferran Torres and the private one. He played his best football in months, while, by his own account, he was barely holding himself together off the pitch. That admission could have been the end of the story. It wasn't. What happened after that moment is the part competitors skip, and it's the part that makes the ending make sense. 11 months later, on January 21st, 2024, Torres scored his first hat trick for Barcelona. The same match marked his 100th appearance for the club, a 4-2 win away at Real Betis. 11 months after that, Barcelona played a chaotic Champions League night against Borussia Dortmund. Torres came off the bench and scored twice in 4 minutes, turning a 2-1 deficit into a 3-2 4-2 win. Then, in February 2025, he scored a first-half hat trick against his boyhood club Valencia in the Copa del Rey. He didn't celebrate. He'd grown up in the stands watching that team. In April 2025, he scored the goal that sent Barcelona to the Copa del Rey final. In the final itself, against Real Madrid, he scored a late equalizer that forced extra time. Barcelona went on to win the trophy. He won the finals MVP award and finished the tournament as its top scorer with 6 goals. This wasn't luck arriving once. This was a pattern building for over a year before anyone outside Barcelona noticed it. If you're finding this one interesting, tap subscribe now. It helps the channel keep making these. A pattern like that doesn't happen by accident. It's worth revisiting exactly where this story began. Remember that first goal, the one in a losing effort against Athletic Bilbao? Here's why it matters. His Barcelona story opens with a goal that changes nothing. In a match, his team loses. It closes 4.5 years later with a goal that changes everything. In the biggest match on the planet, same instinct, same movement into space, completely different stakes. The kid who scored that first goal had nothing to lose. Almost nobody outside Barcelona was watching him closely enough to care. The player who scored the second one had spent 4.5 years with everyone watching, most of them doubting him, and he'd had to relearn how to trust his own instincts. It wasn't a single spark either. On January 16th, 2026, he wore the Barcelona captain's armband for the first time against Racing Santander. That same night, his goal made him the only Barcelona player to score in all 4 competitions that season. Not a flash of form, a pattern that had quietly become real months before the World Cup even started. None of that explains the mechanics of the goal itself. Here's what it looked like. Lamine Yamal found Pedro Porro out wide. Porro's cross reached Nico Williams, who headed it back across goal. By the time the ball arrived, Torres had already slipped away from his marker. One touch, left foot, under the crossbar. That's not brute force. That's the exact same blindside run that beat Atletico Madrid a year earlier, repeated under the most pressure a footballer can face. That's how. The harder question is why now and not before? Did he change, or did the moment arrive at the right time? Here's the honest answer, and it isn't the tidy one. In that same World Cup, he missed clear chances against Cape Verde. Against Saudi Arabia, officials ruled out a goal of his for offside. Cameras caught him mouthing, "Please let it be a goal," during the review. Against Uruguay, he hit the post with the keeper already beaten. He didn't walk into that final a transformed player. He walked in exactly as inconsistent as he'd always been. The difference is that on the one night the entire world watched, his particular kind of magic landed instead of missing. Ferran Torres is exactly as inconsistent as his harshest critics say, and exactly as clutch as his biggest defenders claim. Both things are true at once. None of that made Barcelona want to keep him. Here's what that one goal did. It gave him leverage, and he used it almost immediately. He told reporters Barcelona needed to show him they wanted him. Barcelona answered with silence. The club brought in Anthony Gordon and Karim Adeyemi instead. Reports at the time suggested Barcelona was also chasing a long-term striker elsewhere, targeting Atletico Madrid's Julian Alvarez, a deal Atletico repeatedly said would not happen. That chase is its own story. Catch the full breakdown in Here Is Why Barcelona Want Julian Alvarez, already on the channel. Whether or not that pursuit was ever realistic, it tells you something. Barcelona didn't fight to keep Torres. They were already looking past him. 3 weeks after the final, Torres signed with Paris Saint-Germain for a reported 50 million euros. The man who gave him his first cap for Spain back in 2020 now manages his new club. Luis Enrique believed in him once, at the exact moment nobody else was watching. He's betting on him again now, at the exact moment everyone is. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The next chapter of this story is the part where we find out whether PSG's front line does to him what Barcelona's once did. That one's coming. PSG already has Dembélé, Kvaratskhelia, and Désiré Doué. That's the same shape of problem that nearly ended his career the first time. New stars arriving, minutes shrinking, confidence following them out the door. Dembélé faced that exact same doubt at Barcelona for years. PSG is where he finally answered it. The full story on that is already on the channel. In Messi was right about Ousmane Dembele, but nobody listened. The question isn't whether Ferran Torres can score the biggest goal of his life again. He's already proven he can do that once. The question is whether he'll get the chance to try.